Namaskar. Very warm welcome to all the viewers and learners in this live interaction of CIET NCERT. I am Renu Bhatt with you all and you are watching us live on eVidya channel number 6. Now, apart from this channel, you are with us on our YouTube channels as well, that is NCERT Official and NCERT PM eVidya class number 6. And dear learners and viewers, in this session we are going to learn about two topics, and this session is for social science 6th standard students, and the topic is values of work and economic एक्टिविटीज़ अराउंड अस। अगर हम इस टॉपिक की बात करें तो हमारे पास जितनी भी इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज़ हो रही है हम उसके बारे में ज़्यादा जानेंगे और वैल्यूज़ ऑफ वर्क की वैल्यू के ऊपर बात करने वाले हैं। वी हैव जॉइंड बाय आवर एक्सपर्ट, सो विदाउट एनी फर्दर डिले लेट्स क्विकली मीट हर। You are Dr. Shrishti Chauhan. You are consultant economics from Advisory Council to Prime Minister. Very warm welcome, ma'am. स्वागत है आपका.
Thank you so much.
And dear learners and viewers, in case you have any query या फिर आप इन चैप्टर्स के बारे में ज़्यादा कुछ जानना चाहते हैं तो आप हमसे जुड़ सकते हैं बेझिझक हमारे फ़ोन नंबर के माध्यम से। आप अपनी सभी बातें हमारे एक्सपर्ट से शेयर कर सकते हैं। आपको कॉल करना होगा 8800-440-559 पर, या फिर आप ईमेल के ज़रिए भी अपनी बातें, अपने फीडबैक हम तक पहुँचा सकते हैं, जो है dth.class6@ciet.nic.in. or in case you have joined us through our live streaming, then you have to go to the live chat box and then only you can drop your comment out there. हमारे एक्सपर्ट को बहुत अच्छा लगेगा यदि आप अपने प्रश्न हम तक पहुंचाएंगे, या फिर कोई भी क्वेरी हो, इस चैप्टर में आप कहीं पर अटक गए हैं या ज़्यादा कुछ जानना चाहते हैं तो आप बेझिझक हमसे जुड़िए और हम फटाफट अपना ये चैप्टर, ये सेशन शुरू करना चाहेंगे। सृष्टि मैम, हम आपके पास आएंगे। जब हम बात करते हैं वैल्यूज़ ऑफ वर्क की और इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज़ अराउंड अस, तो ऑल्दो ये दो अलग अलग बातें हैं, टॉपिक्स हैं, तो क्या कुछ स्पेशल आप लेकर आई हैं हमारे सभी स्टूडेंट्स के लिए, मैम?
Yes. So basically new NCERT textbooks में under the theme economic life around us में ये दो chapters हैं, and the value of work and economic activities around us. So let me just start by giving a slight introduction to the value of work. So the underlying idea of this chapter is that we are trying to recognize the type of activities that people engage in. So what you see, you, me and I, everybody can see around us as to what are the type of activities that individuals are doing, right? From somebody selling, probably vegetables and vendor, somebody, going to office, maybe working as a software developer, somebody who is like our parents doing all kind of different chores for us. So those are the different kind of activities, the universe of activities that individuals do. So the idea is to first see what are the various type of activities that people do, also categorize them, we'll come to that, and also what is their contribution to our everyday lives. So let us see. Let's talk about the broad classification of these activities. Now we know that there are two type of activities. So broadly economic activities and non-economic activities. That is generally categorized based on the differences in their nature. So let's see how they differ. So for example, economic activities are the activities which involve some sort of money or money's worth of exchange between the two parties. So for example, as I mentioned, if there is a good that is supposed to be bought at the shop, then what happens? That we give them money, give the shopkeeper the money, and we get the good in return. So there is an exchange of money there. Otherwise, when we talk about money's worth, so not necessarily the payment or the money is involved. We can also have something like a barter system, wherein I receive something, suppose a good X from somebody, and in exchange somebody gives me good Y. So that can also be in some form economic activity. But what happens is that, for example, in case of non-economic activities, they do not generate income or wealth, whereas it is done out of some feeling of gratitude, love, care. So as I mentioned, suppose our parents cooking food for us, or mother teaching her children, or family members painting their own home's wall. So all that become non-economic activities. That is a very, very, again, a very important aspect. Nevertheless, irrespective whether money is involved or not. Yes. So after that, let's see why, as I mentioned, that although under the non-economic activities, money is not directly involved, right? But then we have, why are these non-economic activities important? They are important because they help us in fostering the values of selfless service and community participation. So as you can see on the screen, there is langars at gurudwaras, there are prasads being distributed to the devotees. So all of that is a non-economic activity, but it helps strengthen a sense of selfless service to the society and communities at large. Similarly, there are Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and Van Mahotsav, which is celebrated by uh, children and adults alike, that helps to bring together people to celebrate and have a sense of purpose together. So therefore, even non-economic activities are as important as economic activities. Though economic activity, they involve money, as I said, but and also help in the economic development and growth and prosperity of the nation. But these non-economic activities, they help us foster these important values in the society and communities. Yes. So with that, let's now move to the next chapter. The next chapter also is a continuation of the earlier one, because there we talked about the two types of activities being economic and non-economic, and we understood it talks about the importance of non-economic activities. But here in this chapter, we need to delve more into economic activities, because we are trying to now, as we further progress our knowledge under the theme economic life around us, through this chapter, we would categorize various activities which fall under economic activities. So, for example, there are three main categories of economic activities. Again, economic activities are the one that generate income or involve exchange of money's worth between two parties. Now, one is the first category being primary activities. So what are these? They actually depend on nature to produce goods. So for example, any sort of agricultural activities where the raw material is directly derived from the nature is a primary activity. For example, mining, extracting natural resources, minerals from the earth and under the earth's surface is actually a primary activity. Then let's talk about the second category, that is the secondary activities. Now, secondary activities, we derive outputs of the primary sector and transform them to produce goods. So here, the raw material that we receive from the primary sector, that that is being used to transform to produce goods. Now, let's talk about the third category. Third category is tertiary activities. What does it mean? It means that these are the type of activities which we cannot see directly. They are not tangible, but they are the complementary supportive activities to both the primary and the secondary activities. So for example, when you visit a restaurant, the services that is provided by the chef and the staff, those are our tertiary activities. Now, let's talk about them slightly further and see what are the broad classifications that these activities can also be put under. Now, we talked about three types of activities, right? But in an economy, there are plethora of activities, so many of them. Now, to broadly put activities into broad groups, we have named it as a sector. So the sector, what does it mean? Sector is a group which actually puts together activities of similar nature. So based on the type of activities, we have three sectors. So for example, the first sector is the primary sector. So all the primary activities, they fall under the primary sector. For example, I've already talked about in the last slide about agriculture, horticulture, all other even forms of agriculture fall into primary sector. Mining, then raising livestock. So dairy sector is a very important sector, right? Then we'll talk about forestry. Forestry, for example, we get wood as a product, as a raw material from the forestry sector. So that is again directly derived from nature, falls under primary sector. Then there is fishing and so on. Now coming to the secondary sector. As I said, this sector involves all the activities which are categorized as secondary activities. And secondary activities means that we use all the raw material of the primary sector and put it to use, process it, manufacture goods out of it, right? So for example, construction sector, construction of bridges, roads, etc. It requires cement and all the other raw material, and for which the input actually comes from the primary sector, right? And for example, manufacturing in terms of textiles. So textiles, when you talk about clothes, so we have cotton, we have wool coming from the primary sector, which is transformed into clothes, or the whole our textile industry is based on these inputs, right? Then talking about electronics. So electronic manufacturing, for example, the phones that we use, that involves, for example, glass screen. So glass we derive from silica, again from nature. So, and so on, right? Then we talk about tertiary sector. Tertiary sector, as I said, not really tangible, something we can't touch, but we understand that it supports these two primary and secondary sectors. So for example, communication. So all our teleservices, wireless network services, for example, the internet that we use, the mobile services, all of that is comes under the communication sector. Then transportation, logistics. So taking goods from one place to another is again a service, and that service comes under the tertiary sector. Then talking about education. So our teachers, professors, health sector, doctors, even banking, for example, all the finance professionals, banking professionals. So all their services, lawyers, etc., whatever you name it, you see around, you will see their services being rendered, that comes under tertiary sector.
So ma'am, you have just talked about three sectors, right? Primary,
Yes.
secondary and tertiary sectors. We have three sectors. So ma'am,
Yes.
could you please give us more example of interdependence of these three sectors, ma'am?
Yes. So I'll come to that. So when we talk about interdependence among sectors, as you can see, there is a graphic in the slide wherein the wood is being transformed into paper. So how does that happen? Now the wood pulp is extracted from the wood, and from that pulp, you see when we talk about the primary sector, first of all, the wood is extracted. The wooden logs are then transported using the secondary sector, right? The tertiary sector, the services of logistics, and then further the wooden pulp is processed. That comes under the secondary sector, the processing, the manufacturing of paper, the printing part, all of that comes into secondary sector. And then finally, again, using the logistics, which is the services sector, then the final, the books or the notebooks are being transported to the retail, which is again a tertiary sector. So the shops or the retail stores, they are providing the services of making available all of these various goods to the final consumer. So that is one example of it. Another could be, for example, making potato chips from potatoes, right from potatoes to potato chips under the food processing. That is one example. Tomato ketchup from tomato, that becomes another important aspect of interdependence among these sectors. Yeah.
जी. Okay.
So with that, our two topics come to end. Yeah.
Okay, so ma'am, that was really interesting. Here I would like to know about the tertiary sectors. How important is the tertiary sector for India, ma'am? कितना ज़रूरी है ये sector?
So after India's independence, when we had liberalized in 1991, our focus greatly shifted from manufacturing from the heavy industries to the tertiary sector. So and so that even 60% of the workforce today is involved in the tertiary sector, the services sector. So as you can see around most of the urban hubs, the services such as there is a something of a similar of a Silicon Valley in Bangalore. So wherein the most of the software and IT companies are located. So that has been the contribution of tertiary sector, the service sector in our economy. And as I said, tertiary sector supports both of these sectors together, which actually helps to in the growth and development of both primary as well as secondary sector. And overall, it helps to augment economic development.
Okay, so ma'am, here I want to know more about this particular chapter, specifically the value of work, if we talk about, right? So in what forms are people compensated for economic activities, ma'am?
Yes.
What you have for our learners, ma'am? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So as I said, economic activities involve money or money is worth exchange. So if the payment is in terms of money, it could be a salary. So salary being a fixed payment that is done over a repeated time frame. So in the formal sector, as you and I, we are suppose salaried employees and employer contractors there, which they receive salary for the work done. Then there are wages. So wages are the payment that is made for a specific time period, right? So in the agriculture sector, we see a lot of casual labor, for a particular season or a particular harvest, for the work that is done. So in that case, that becomes wages which is paid out to the people or agricultural laborers who work on the farm. So that is one. And the other thing is, for example, there is another category which is payment in kind, which still prevails in a lot of ways, especially again when I talk about agriculture sector. So, for example, in case if for a work or that is done or a service that has been given by somebody, but maybe as I said, so suppose a person working on the farm, and in return, if the farm owner, if he gives a part of the harvest, such as food grains to the person who has worked, in that case that becomes payment in kind. So there is salary, then there are wages, there is payment in kind, and there is also one more category which is fee. So for example, when we lawyers, doctors, generally they charge a specific fee because that is a particular project or a particular assignment based payment that is done. So yeah, so there is salary, wages, fee and payment in kind.
मैम बिकॉज वी आर रनिंग वेरी शॉर्ट ऑफ टाइम और हम लास्ट में आपसे बहुत ही ब्रीफ में हम आपसे जानना चाहेंगे वैल्यू एडिशन के बारे में कि किस तरह से रिलेटेड है इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज से मैम इन अ ब्रीफ वी वुड लाइक टू नो अबाउट इट
यस सो फॉर एग्जांपल व्हेन आई टॉक्ड अबाउट इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज and the three sectors when I talked about it, so right from primary to secondary. So when I talk about suppose furniture, so when the wood is derived, when a wood is procured and then immediately it is transformed into say furniture. So the carpenter who is actually processing the wooden log into the furniture, he or she is actually making a value addition to the, and because our product is being generated. So if the wood is suppose for 1,000 rupees, and suppose a chair is made out of it, so the chair is sold for suppose 3,000 rupees in the market. So there is a value addition of 2,000 rupees that person has done. So this is again a very important aspect of economic activities. Yes.
तो ये तो बात हुई जो हमारे सभी लर्नर्स के लिए बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है. इफ़ यू टॉक अबाउट दीज चैप्टर्स, वैल्यू ऑफ वर्क एंड इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटीज़ अराउंड अस, ढेर सारी एक्टिविटीज़ हैं हमारे आसपास जो इकोनॉमिक है और हमसे डायरेक्ट इनडायरेक्ट जुड़ी हुई हैं. यहाँ पे बिकॉज हमारे पास समय नहीं है मैम, वी हैव टू रैप अप दिस सेशन हेयर ओनली, बट सृष्टि मैम हम आपको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करते हैं. थैंक यू सो वेरी मच फॉर बीइंग विद अस मैम. थैंक यू सो वेरी मच.
थैंक यू सो मच, बीन अ प्लेजर.
थैंक यू मैम. प्लेजर इज़ ऑल आवर्स. और आपने इतने अच्छे से पूरा चैप्टर हमारे सभी स्टूडेंट्स तक पहुंचाया, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. अपने सभी देखने वालों का हम धन्यवाद करना चाहेंगे. बहुत ही संक्षेप में, बहुत ही ब्रीफ में हम आपके साथ शेयर करेंगे वो प्रोग्राम जो आप हमारे साथ देख सकते हैं. थोड़ी देर में हम आपके लिए एक लाइव इंटरेक्शन लेकर आएंगे 4 से 5 बजे, और इसमें हम आपको बता रहे हैं हमारा 5 डेज़ ऑनलाइन ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम कंडक्ट किया जा रहा है. और हमारा आज का इस हफ्ते का जो थीम है वो है सोशल मीडिया सेफ्टी एंड वेलबींग. 5 बजे हम आपके साथ आएंगे दोबारा आपसे मिलने के लिए सहयोग प्रोग्राम लेकर, और सहयोग जिसमें हम बात करते हैं बच्चों के मेंटल वेलबींग पर. और आज का हमारा टॉपिक है इम्पैक्ट ऑफ सेल फोन्स ऑन चिल्ड्रन. किस तरह से सेल फोन बच्चों पर प्रभाव डालता है आपको बताया जाएगा इस सत्र में. और आप हमसे जुड़ सकते हैं प्रातः 8 बजे से 5:30 बजे तक. योग शक्ति के साथ हम अपने सत्रों की शुरुआत करते हैं और सहयोग के साथ हम अपने सत्रों की समाप्ति करते हैं. तो आप थ्रू आउट द डे हमारे साथ रह सकते हैं, और हम चाहते हैं कि अपनी सभी क्वेरीज आप सभी बच्चे हमारे से शेयर करें, हमें बताएं. अभी फ़िलहाल मुझे रेणु भट्ट को दें अनुमति, और यूँ ही आप बने रहें eVidya चैनल्स पर. नमस्कार.